I believe we have Dr. Eileen Antone here, we have Kelly Fairney, we have Cheryl Partridge, and we have Janet, correct?
Janet's gone.
Janet's gone. Okay. Okay. Are there any other authors that I'm missing? No? Okay, I'd like to introduce Dr. Eileen Antone. And I say Dr. Eileen Antone, and I say Dr. Lynn LaValle, and I say Dr. Peter Menzies, because I think about Lillian McGregor, Dr. Lillian McGregor, who's passed on to the spirit world. And I remember sitting upstairs in a room here, and she lectured the meeting, we were in a board meeting, and she lectured everybody about using the term doctor for me because of the journey that we've taken. And I know that, you know, with Dr. Eileen Antone, she comes before me, like you've come before Peter and I just want to acknowledge that. It's not an easy journey going through the academic institution, so I want to say Chini Gwech and invite you up here.
Sekali swagwe gung, ungwe hungwe nidi, on it up, jidwat got dundi, London, Ontario, up that. Jotsonic, nay, but on the Shona young gats, call it Gully young gats. Eileen Antone, up Slane Gip young gats, up Noel, ni, Wagadalodo. And so today, I'm very, very glad that I can read readings to you in the language of my people, the Onyada'ak people. And when I said Saguli, that's the formal greeting that we use for each other. Swagwekong means all of you that are here. So I bring greetings to all of you. I come from Onyada'ak, also known as the Oneida First Nation of the Thames. And I told you my name, Joksonic, is a Haudenosaunee name. That's the name I use for ceremonies. But I also told you I have another name. When I say Neogats, that means that's who I am. And it's Gully-Weesaks. This name was given to me by one of the elders in my original research way back in the early 90s. I was studying about Aboriginal people and education in Canada. And so when I interviewed her, she was the oldest participant I had, and she was as old as her. She was 83 at the time. And so while we were talking, she asked me, she said, "What is your Indian name?" Because she was telling me about her experience at residential school. And I had to tell her that I didn't have an Indian name because my mother and father both went to residential school, and they wanted to protect us from the punishments that they had witnessed in the school system. And so she said, "Okay, I'll give you an Indian name. Your name is going to be Gully-Weesaks. And that means she who gathers information." And so I'm really, really glad that I was able to gather this information about residential schools so that I could again share in this book that has been written. It's so important that we have these kinds of things for our people to be able to access, our students, our instructors. And so again, I also told you that my English name is Eileen Antone, and I belong to the Turtle Clan. So I'm really, really, really excited to be here and very glad to be at this book launch because again, it is such an important book for all of us. I served as a faculty member at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education at the Department of Adult Education, Community Development, and Counseling Psychology. And that's where I met Peter Menzies when he enrolled in one of the Aboriginal education courses that I was teaching. I also met Lynn LaValle at the same time as I was working there at the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. And it was so exciting to have students from the Native community, from the Aboriginal communities, because as Lynn had said, it was a really difficult journey coming through the system with no support. And that's the kind of system that I had come through. And it was really during the time I was studying education of Native peoples in Canada, using a case study of the Onondaga people, that I became aware of the draconian conditions of the residential schools in Canada. Although my mother went to the Mount Elgin Institute residential school, she was not explicit about the dehumanizing school conditions. She may have mentioned that the boys were often hungry and their girlfriends working in the kitchen would steal food for them. She probably did not know that it was because of the poor funding that students were not getting enough food. She also mentioned that she worked in a kitchen where they prepared meals for the staff, which was quite different from the meals prepared for the students. She also told us that the boys had a half day of school, and the other half day they worked in the barns or they were out in the fields planting and harvesting. My father went to residential school for only 1 year because his father, who had a farm, wanted his son to have an academic education and not be an unpaid farmhand. So he was only in residential school for 1 year, but he also witnessed some of the things that happened there. My mother most likely did not know that because of meager funding, the churches began to rely increasingly on student labor to keep the schools open. The school curriculum combined a half day of limited basic education with practical training and child labor in agriculture, crafts, and household duties. These were intended to prepare students for their future on the lower edge of society. My mother used her staff kitchen training to become a maid in the city of Birmingham, Michigan, where she worked for 10 years after she got out of residential school at the age of 15. She returned to the Onondaga community where she married my father and they had 4 children. My oldest brother got sick and died before he was a year old, but I was able to grow up contentedly with 1 older brother and 1 younger sister. My mother would not use the Onondaga language when we were growing up. When we were old enough to ask her about this situation, she just said she did not want us to get the strap for using the language or using our language in school. She told us that when she went to school, the children would be punished using the Indian language, and she did not want us to experience the harsh discipline for speaking our own language. According to her stories, she did not encounter the harsh realities that some students we now hear about their experience. She told us that when the girls were working in the kitchen, one of the matrons would read them stories from the Bible and describe the love of Jesus Christ and God. She told us about the musical concerts some of the residential schools were involved with. She was so enthralled with one of the musicals which she participated in that she prompted the Oneida Youth Council, of which her children were members, to produce a musical with us, her children, in leading roles. We had an exciting time getting the musical ready. So I can imagine that some of the students at the residential schools also had a good experience. Some of her who were now parents of the time, at the time of this musical creation in our community. They remarked to her at the end of the production that she did a good job coaching and teaching the younger people to be positive leaders in our community. Although her goal through residential school was to be a teacher, she never got the opportunity to fulfill this dream in a classroom setting, but she taught us, her children, and role modeled to others the principles of the Ongwehongwe life. She taught us the principles of respect, fairness, caring, integrity, coexistence, citizenship, and reasoning. It was these Ongwehongwe principles that enabled me to examine and present the chapter of residential schools for Aboriginal children in this book of Journey to Healing. And as a former student and a former associate professor at the university, I truly appreciate the comprehensive work that has been extended to make this volume containing issues of addiction and mental health available to all our instructors and students. And I say, Yawa, go to the editors, Peter and Lynn, and to the other authors that shared their story writing so that we have information that we can use to work with people in our communities. Because I remember when I started school, the university in 1975, there were only books written by non-Native people. But there was one that was written by Harold Cardinal, and that grabbed my attention. And that was one of the books that enabled me to be able to continue in the field of education and to work with our people, knowing that we have people. And now I see all of these authors, these Aboriginal authors that have given their time and have been provided the space to be able to share their information. And so I say, go and I raise my feather to the authors and the editors of this book.
Chimiwech, Dr. Eileen Antone. I'd like to invite Kelly Fairdy, co-author of the youth chapter, to come and say a few words.
Hello, everybody. First, I'd like to start off by honoring the traditional territories that we stand on. When I was asked to do this chapter with Lynn, I was like, yeah, sure, I can do it, but I don't know what I'm going to add to it. For a lot of years in my life, I've been surrounded by men, women, people in the school systems, people on the street. They can't find that value in people. So it was really hard for me to understand what kind of value I could bring to this book. After reading it and after seeing the impact that it's had on our community, I feel so honored that I was able to contribute to that. The vision for this book was to take academic knowledge and non-academic knowledge and collaborate it in order to, teach something to people. I suffered from addictions for many years. I have gone through my own little stubs of mental health issues, which I'm probably going to go through a few more. And I'm currently in my third year at Ryerson University doing my undergrad for the social work program, and we're learning a lot about knowledge. Who gets to produce knowledge, who gets to say what's right, who gets to say what's wrong, and just the opportunity that Peter gave to all of us non-academic authors. You value my knowledge, you value my story, and for that, I'm always going to be grateful, and it's given me opportunities where I never ever thought I would ever amount to. And the only expectation that I ever had for this book was if somebody opened up my chapter and read my story, and I was able to inspire them or teach them, and they looked at it and said, hey, if she could do it, I could do it, I've surpassed anything that I could ever expect. So, Chinguash to Lynn, Chinguash to Peter, all the rest of the authors and the editors. This is a really, really good thing for our community, and I'm really happy I was able to be a part of it.
Kelly. I'd like to invite Dr. Cheryl Partridge, soon to be Dr. Cheryl Partridge, but you're a doctor in my eyes, so as I said, Dr. Partridge, and I'm going to call you doctor because I just see you that way, wrote the first chapter, and she started us off traditionally. So.
Anyway, I'm really honored to be here and to be a part of this book launch today. And I really want to thank Peter.
Taking a picture.
Oh, taking a picture. Peter is the one that contacted me and asked me about doing a chapter, and I was really kind of shocked. It was, of course I said, oh, I'd love to, but yeah. And so then it evolved. The chapter that's in the book right now is different than the one I previously wrote, but that's okay. Anything for Peter and Lynn also, and everybody. Michelle Mins is here. I haven't met her yet, but talked to her on the phone or emailed her. And so this journey to healing, and when they told me all the authors and who was an author of this book, I thought, oh my goodness, I was just thrilled to be a part of this, because the authors that are in the book are authors that I've used in my classes at Laurentian. So yeah, now I'm on sabbatical this year. Otherwise, I would be using this book right now as we speak. So can't wait to get back to work, and I'll be using this book in a couple of my classes also. And I'm so happy to see Dr. Antone here, who was my first thesis supervisor. And as Lynn said, she said, "Are you a doctor?" I said, "No, not yet." That's what I'm using this year for, to hopefully finish what I've started. And so yeah, it's been a long journey, but I've been kind of busy in between also, so I'm happy where I am in my life. So if when it happens, it'll happen. I guess that'll be the right time. I'd just like to read just a little chapter, not a chapter, sorry, a little paragraph out of I'll see if I can see it. that ensured our survival, and that ensured our survival and that of our environment. In our families, each member was considered important. Within our communities, everyone was treated with respect, from the tiniest baby, who was a gift from Jean Nadeau, to the oldest member, to whom Jean Nadeau had given the gift of long life. Each person has a special place within the community circle. When we know where we belong, when we know where we come from, who our ancestors are, when we know who our extended family and our roles, when we know the patterns that exist within our territory, and that an unseen power exists and cares for all of creation, then we can be assured that our mental health is in balance. And that's just one, small paragraph that's in my chapter. And as Lynn and Peter said, when they told me my chapter was going to be the first one in the book, I almost said, oh. I did say, oh. And then they kind of, directed, in a sense, what they were looking for. They said, we want your chapter to be the first one in the book so that you can set the tone for the rest of the book. And I thought, oh my goodness, what an important role they have given me. And so I'm just, thrilled that, that it happened. And, it's here, it's in black and white, and, we can actually touch it. So, yeah, I'm very, well, I can't believe I have a chapter of this, book that's going to be used for years. And it will certainly benefit our communities, not only our institutions of higher learning, but our communities also, where, our workers will be referring to us when they're working. So, good.
Miigwech, Dr. Partridge. Okay, I'm going to go off a little bit. Regent in the house? Woo! Okay, folks from Regent, please stand up. Come on. Because my sister's here, I want her to see. So, Ellen, Lisa Foots is hiding. There you go. So I want to say Miigwech, everybody who came. You don't know what it means. I think that for me, this is a full circle, right? And having, Zach do an honor song, and then seeing you here, having my sister Suzanne here, having my mother here, because you are my mother, and having my other sister here as well. So, and Danny as well, I want to thank you for coming. You're not from Regent, but we'll make you an honorary Regent member. So, Miigwech, have a seat. Thanks. Nancy in the back also lives in Regent currently. She's what you call the new school Regent, and you're kind of the old school Regent, right? And then, and yes, we're not the old school. This is the old school. Elder Vern Harper was in Regent before Regent was what it was, what they're tearing down now. So on the way here, I actually drove by, because I had a little bit of time to spare before I picked up the pasta from the Hot House Restaurant and Bar. And they're actually tearing down 605 Whiteside, which is the first apartment that we lived in. And I tried to get some bricks. I got bricks from the house that they tore down, but Suzanne and Andrew were actually going to be popping by after, and we're going to do some trespassing. Okay, we're at our thank yous now, but please don't leave. This is a traditional ceremony that's happening right now. Zach and his drummers, they opened with a traditional song and they invited the spirits in and we had an opening prayer. We're going to close that way as well. So if you can hold on to your seat for a while, please do.